The weight of whispered charges and brewing animosities made the atmosphere in the courtroom feel heavy and dense. She sat across the aisle in a picture of calm indifference, her posture flawless, and we, the unfortunate players, were forced to perform our private tragedy beneath the harsh scrutiny of the public. Her dark hair was pulled back in a sleek, austere bun that highlighted her face's sharp features, but my attention was drawn to her eyes. I thought Ashley and I were, at least on the surface, the ideal couple, a comfortable home, successful careers, and a social life full of inside jokes and shared laughter, but like a house built on a foundation of lies, our life started to fall apart. It started subtly with a change in her schedule and a detachment in her touch, which I dismissed as stress or a change in routine naivete. Those cold, calculating eyes that had once been my solace were now filled with a smug certainty that infuriated me. We had been married for 12 years or so. The first real clue was a misplaced hotel room receipt, a room not reserved for the two of us but for her and another man. That was my first taste of the treachery, a bitter metallic tang that stuck to my tongue and wouldn't go away. It was a paper cut compared to the sword that was to follow. I confronted her, and I remember the scene in the kitchen so clearly. I was so naive until the whispered phone calls, the hushed conversations in the other room, and the late nights at the office that had nothing to do with work. When I showed her the evidence, the familiar smells of our life turned somehow occurred in her eyes. Rather than denying it at first, she tried to defend it with a twisted logic that made me the victim of her infidelity and even claimed that she deserved it. The words hit me like a punch to the gut, making me want to scream in rage and throw everything of our life back in her face, but instead I just stood there taking it all in and letting the silence speak for itself. I made the decision right away that I would not give her the satisfaction of a dramatic outburst. Instead, I would play it cool and smart. This was about more than just a broken marriage. It was about holding her responsible and ensuring that she realized the extent of her deceit, and I knew how to do that. I began painstakingly documenting and organizing all of the information I could discover, including dates, hours, and specifics. I also began constructing a case and a wall of facts that would undermine her facade of innocence. The lengthy and contentious divorce processes involved a torturous dance of allegations and legal disputes. She was looking at me with that smug, confident expression, a silent declaration of victory she thought she had, believing her lies and calculated manipulation would protect her, and I could feel the hatred radiating off her like heat from an open flame, but I was prepared and sitting there in that courtroom with the weight of it all pressing down on me. I felt the strength of resolve and the unwavering conviction that what I was doing was about justice, not revenge. My lawyer, a shrewd seasoned professional, methodically started outlining the case after the judge, a woman with a composed and perceptive manner, called for the evidence to be presented. He produced the hotel receipts, credit card statements, and photographs, along with all the other evidence I had painstakingly gathered. Ashley's face remained composed. Her unflinching grin. I could feel the tension in the room building into a building storm that was about to break as I watched her, a cold satisfaction swelling in my chest as I waited for her meticulously created world to collapse around her. Her entire universe was resting on the shoulders of the critical piece of evidence. A string of text messages, not just a few casual conversations, but a lengthy, indisputable trail of conversations spanning months. These texts exposed a web of lies so complex and intricate that even the most skilled liar could not have escaped it. They also revealed her affair and the cold, cunning way she had manipulated not only me but also her lover, a man who turned out to be married. Every syllable was a hammer blow to Ashley's meticulously constructed wall of defense as the judge read the transcripts out loud. Her smirk, her poise, and her eyes widened in fright as she raced around the room. The arrogance she faded and was replaced by a look of pure terror. And then I was waiting for a text message to her lover in which she made it clear that she intended to use the affair as leverage to financially drain me during the divorce. She called me a fool, thereby reversing the confirmation of her heartless intentions. Her complete lack of morality or regret was a declaration that exposed the depths of her dishonesty and stripped her of her humanity. The courtroom, which had just been humming with anticipation, plunged into a heavy quiet, and I could practically hear the gears grinding as her world crumbled beneath the weight of the judge's truth. Her face grew horribly white, and her hands trembled as she urgently whispered to her lawyer. "This information is devastating, Walker. It presents a very unsettling picture that points to not only infidelity but also intentional malice and a flagrant breach of trust." Her countenance was solemn as she gazed at Ashley and spoke with a controlled power that reverberated throughout the room. I had a brief moment of near satisfaction, but it was tempered with a deep sense of sadness as the gavel struck the wooden block with a sharp, resounding crack that seemed to echo in Ashley's ears, signaling the end of her painstakingly constructed world. This was not a victory, but rather a closure, the last chapter in an agonizing saga. The terms of the divorce settlement greatly benefited me. She bears full responsibility for the financial consequences of her deceit. The world had collapsed around her in a slow, torturous fall rather than a spectacular explosion, and the judgment was a clear declaration that her falsehoods would not go unpunished. Her lawyer, a man full of confidence at first, suddenly appeared completely defeated. Ashley ignored me, looking pale and trembling. Her gaze remained focused on the table as she attempted to realize how completely mistaken she had been. She had believed she could outsmart me and carry on with her game without facing any repercussions. I left the courtroom that day not with a feeling of triumph but with a sense of profound relief. The weight that had been pressing down on me for so long had finally lifted. I looked back once at Ashley sitting there defeated. The look on her face, the one that was once brimming with arrogance, was now a mix of fear and complete desolation. I could see the panic, the realization that she had gone too far, that her carefully laid plans had backfired miserably and completely. Her silence spoke louder than any scream. She had underestimated me. She had mistaken my quiet nature for weakness, my patience for blind trust. But the truth is, I was stronger than I ever thought possible, and in the end it was that strength coupled with the truth that had won the day. As I walked away from the courthouse, I looked up at the sky. It was a clear day and I knew I could move on, leaving the wreckage of our broken marriage behind me. It wasn't a happy ending, but it was an ending, and that was all that mattered.